Welcome to Master B2B's Fireside Chat series. My name is Brian Beck. I'm the co-founder of Master B2B. We are a thought leadership series and community of e-commerce executives. Today, we have an exciting episode talking all about data. My co-host today is from Industrial Data Associates. He is the president, Eli Cooley. We'll be talking all about an area he's a deep expert in. Eli, welcome to our Fireside Chat today.
Thanks, Brian. Happy to be here.
Awesome. And we have a very special guest today who has tackled the dirty data dilemma. This is Jeff Reichert, who is the Director of E-commerce and Digital Marketing at Kimball Midwest. Kimball Midwest is a leading distributor, a nationwide distributor of fasteners, fluid flow, a variety of other industrial products. Jeff, great to have you here today with us.
Thank you, Brian. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So, Jeff, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit more about Kimball Midwest. What does the company do, and what's your role at the company?
Kimball Midwest, it's a 101-year-old family-owned and operated MRO distributor. We sell nationwide. We have over 1,500 sales reps who are going, door to door, opening up new accounts and servicing our customers. So we focus on VMI, which is vendor managed inventory. And we sell 55,000 SKUs with 80% of our inventory spend is on American-made products.
And it's a sort of described as a legacy distributor. How long have you guys been in business?
101 years.
101 years. Okay. Awesome. So you probably have a lot of sort of traditional selling methods and things, and you joined the company how long ago?
I joined in 2017.
Okay. So you joined in 2017, and our theme today is talking about solving the dirty data problem. Tell us, what is that? When you joined the company, did you have a data problem, and what does a data problem look like?
So from my perspective, a data problem would be where a customer is not able to make an easy decision on which products they want to purchase from us. And looking at that, you're likely seeing either missing attribute data or missing descriptions. Maybe we don't have enough of it filled in, so we could be missing like a length or diameter, so now they can't make that decision. Or structurally, it's difficult for them to read or look at our pages on the site and ascertain exactly what they want to purchase. I will say our sales reps also, point out to us many areas of opportunities as from a data perspective as well.
I remember you telling me that's actually how you knew you had a data problem, right? A lot of it had to do with your sales reps saying they couldn't find products.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I got here, one of the common things was, they would say, hey, our site search sucks, and a lot of other colorful language at times. And they were right. It was, and to this day, it sometimes can be challenging to discover or find products on our site. We're constantly working on enhancing that, which we'll get into today, talking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Eli, this is an area that you have a whole business focused around. Tell us a little more about Industrial Data Associates and what you're seeing in terms of these kinds of issues across your customer base.
Yeah, well, our organization has been around for about 14 years now. We started in 2010, and it's in our name, Industrial Data Associates. So we primarily work with manufacturers and distributors of fairly technical products. That's a pretty big market there of distributors and manufacturers. Most of our customers have over 10,000 products that they're trying to manage information for. And I think the challenges that Kimball Midwest was facing are kind of consistent with what we see across the market. And a lot of these challenges are not new. These are data accuracy, data consistency, data completeness, and data relevancy. I think that's something that everyone continues to struggle with is how do I get the right set of data, whether it's my descriptions, my attributes, my taxonomy. How do I get the right data? How do I make sure it's accurate and consistent and complete, and that I have the right information for people and I don't have irrelevant information for users? So all of this contributes to kind of the findability challenge that Jeff just spoke to. One other thing that I would mention that's maybe a little bit higher order is that we do help organizations align their various data management ecosystems. So whether that's ERP, their PIM, or their display channels, getting those getting all those ecosystems aligned, and having the right strategy for that is a big part of what we do.
Yeah, that seems to be one of the biggest challenges organizations face with this. So let's go back. Thank you for that, Eli. Let's go back to Jeff. When you look at, challenges so you knew you had a data problem, you said findability, you said your sales team was talking to you about things. You determined what existed, but how did you go about thinking about the solution? How did you approach solving the data problem once you realized it was there?
Well, when I came here, I knew we didn't have a great site search platform, but I also didn't know that was necessarily the root problem. Mm-hmm. We definitely needed to upgrade our site search platform from where we were, just to provide better analytics, provide a better searching experience. But the underlying problem really was the data and the results that were coming back.
Got it. So how did you know, when you think about the data problem, I mean, people say, well, I'll just put a PIM in place, or, it's I got to go get my supplier if I'm a distributor to fix the data and give me better data. I mean, there's so many different layers to solving this issue. How did you know where to start with all of this?
Well, we had identified some pretty glaring and obvious data issues. For instance, we had thousands of products that had the same name. That's not helpful. We had, we found a way to basically have one inch spelled out 11 different ways across all of our attributes. So we lacked normalization, consistency. The information that was keyed in was, if it was right, it may have been obviously inconsistent. So those examples were pretty clear. And in some aspects, it was kind of embarrassing when you'd see attributes on the left-hand side and, one, they weren't sorted, right? So it just looked like a mess. And those were those indicators.
Got it. And so did you put a PIM in place first? Did you call Eli? What was your first action that you took? Mm-hmm.
Well, the first thing we did do was implement a new site search platform.
Okay.
And what that provided just was a more robust search engine for us and a lot of additional information and analytics so that we could start looking at, search results with 0 keyword results and looking at the search terms that people were typing in and being able to put in synonyms, things like that. Then, the next step for my team was we didn't have any merchants on our team. Mm-hmm. Our team was made up of mainly support folks and digital marketing people.
Got it.
So I needed to bring a merchant on board. Fortunately, we had a great associate here who'd been here for several years working on the product line team and had knowledge of our products and was really interested in getting on the website team. So that was the start of building out the merchandising team. We built a task force to start looking at PIMs. And, there's a lot of PIMs on the market. When we were looking at them, we were going to be the only department using the PIM for probably several years. There just wasn't the appetite yet from an enterprise perspective, but we knew that we needed one and we needed to be able to grow with it. So, we did have requirements that we needed, but really we were looking for a very strong platform, but that was also a value play to us. I had, in my mind, a set budget, and there's some other PIMs out there that are really expensive. They're great PIMs, but we weren't ready to take on one of those workhorses and do the implementation.
Got it.
So Eli, once we, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Please finish your thought.
Once we started getting our requirements together, we did the assessment, and of course we went through the selection process. We did find one, and then we did the implementation. So for us, there was quite a bit of work for us to do in order to get the PIM integrated with our website and our site search platform.
Got it. And Eli, when you work across a lot of different companies, I know you did work with Jeff on some of these things. When you think about the approach to prioritizing, where do you start? What are some of the things that you see companies doing right, and where are they making mistakes in terms of your experience on how they tackle this issue?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is, as Jeff's describing here, is selecting the right PIM. The PIM that you choose makes a big difference. In some ways, they all do the same thing, and in other ways, they're all unique in terms of their strengths and weaknesses. So really laying out what your requirements are, which really are different organization to organization, what you're expecting to get out of that PIM. So getting the requirements ahead of time, and then using those requirements to drive your selection. The other piece is the data piece. So the PIM selection is kind of one thing, and that's kind of separate from the data that's going to go into it. In terms of I think there's a tough decision that most organizations have, which is when you implement a new PIM, do you just kind of focus on shifting and lifting and shifting the data that you already have into that PIM, and then kind of use the PIM to improve your data from there? Or do you use the implementation of a new PIM as an opportunity to fix some of your data before you even load it? And that's something that we see play out over and over again with clients that we work with, and so that's a big decision. Do you work on the data prior to loading the PIM, or do you focus on getting the PIM implemented and then work on the data from there?
Is there one answer there, or is it kind of dependent on the organization?
I don't think so, but you're always going to have your PIM implementer and your PIM, kind of encouraging you to load the data to PIM first. I think that's pretty consistent. That the PIM kind of wants you to get your data in there, and so that they can kind of get the project up and down. And that might not always be the right decision for the organization.
And the way your company IDA works, you kind of advise companies on this, right? There's not necessarily one PIM that's right for every company, for example, right? So you're kind of playing an advisory role through this.
That's right. And there's a really big piece of information architecture or data modeling that occurs within every PIM, which is what some people might call it a collection hierarchy or a master attribution hierarchy. But this is the hierarchy or the taxonomy, where every item has one and only one home, and where we kind of keep track of all the attributes and the descriptions of the products. Now, when the data goes downstream, it might go all over the place and be in all sorts of different categories and in different channels. But every PIM, most PIMs, I should say, have some kind of a master hierarchy that lives in it, where you master your product information. And getting that right is really important, and it's a lot trickier than people think to build out the right structure.
I'll bet. Yeah, taxonomy, and Jeff, you experienced this, right? Did you have to adjust the taxonomy through this, the way your data was structured through this process?
So when we put in the PIM, we brought in 3 different data sources together. In retrospect, that was probably 1 or 2 too many, and there was quite a bit of work that we had to do to kind of get rid of data that just wasn't needed, or there were duplications of attributes. But once we kind of got it into a sort of a single source of data, that was when we could really start to work on the enrichment. Now, after we had found the PIM, we were looking for a partner, because I had never done something to this scale and this kind of focus with 55,000 SKUs. And, it's a very broad catalog that we have.
Yeah.
I was also looking to not duplicate issues or errors or missteps that other companies had done, because we were behind, and we really needed to accelerate and hopefully get past the things that we just didn't know. And so that we didn't make those mistakes. And Eli was talking about just the data structure. When him and I started talking, it just became apparent that we were doing good work, great work. But he was coming from a structure perspective. He was talking about logical data models. He was explaining just the structure, the taxonomy. How do we want to think through that? And I think that really helped guide my merchants into kind of just having that single consistent train of thought as to how we were going to go about creating a new taxonomy, because we had to create a new one. Because our current, or the one we had, was very technical in nature. So, we have a lot of really great technically knowledgeable people about our product, and our taxonomy looked like that. It wasn't customer friendly.
Gotcha.
It is just another way to put it, where, the way that we were defining things are not the way that our end users, our customers, are searching for them.
Well, right, and that's one of the things I think from what I've seen. People underestimate. They say, "Hey, we just need a PIM, and the problem's solved." But what you're saying, both of you, is that it goes beyond just putting a PIM in place. You're talking about the taxonomy. You're talking about resources. You're talking about other things beyond just a PIM. The PIM. How would you characterize a PIM, Eli? Product Information Management System. I mean, I think of it kind of as a platform, right? That enables. But what other things do you need to have in place to make this effective?
Yeah, I think well, you have to have the data for the PIM. So not to harp on that again, but that's the PIM is really not much without the data that goes in it.
Sure.
I think the other thing that you have to have is some rules or a playbook or a style guideline that helps you know what the way that you'd like to manage the data in the PIM. To help the people who work in the PIM make consistent decisions and feel like they have a consistent reference point. And then I think the integrations are key. So you're looking at how does data flow from ERP into PIM, and what do I need to do with that? And then how does data flow from PIM downstream? Typically, the most important downstream channel is the website. Sometimes multiple websites if we're in multiple regions or serving multiple properties. But but it's not just the website. Sometimes there's other targets that matter as well. But thinking about how data kind of flows in and how data flows out are some of the most important things to be thinking about. Because it's not, PIM is just kind of one place to master the data. Really, the item is usually born upstream in ERP, and the item is sold downstream on the website. So PIM is just a place to get all that, have that one kind of consistent source of truth typically for marketing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, it goes beyond the system and the technology. And Jeff, you mentioned you have a merchant that you brought in. What does your team look like that's done this, kind of work? Is there, from a resourcing perspective, do you have multiple people now? Is it still one person doing most of the work? What does that look like?
Yep. Yeah. So like I said, in 2018, when I really started looking at this, we had mainly support people and digital marketers. We still have support people from digital marketers today, but we have now a team of 3 merchants.
Wow.
So I've got an online merchandising manager and a senior merchant, and then an online merchant that we hired about 2 years ago, who we've been training up to understand our products. And that's what's really helped us kind of accelerate this, is having a team of merchants who, most of the work we've done has been manual. And I believe that the way in order for us to really enrich our products and fill them correctly was through a manual effort. But along that journey, they became very familiar with our products. And to me, that was an additional win for us, because now they can intelligently talk about our different categories, very specific attributes in different products. So to me, that really was one of the biggest wins.
Yeah, Jeff mentioned that a lot of the work is manual, and that's true. There is a lot of manual work in reviewing products, reviewing variable products, reviewing taxonomy, reviewing even attribute values, and some of it is manual. But we are using a lot of automation as well. So whether that's automating descriptions, automating product names, automating identifying potential attribute values that can be filled. There is a fair amount of automation, even identifying the tables, the sequence of the tables, and generating selector attributes for the variable products. We are using automation for some of those things that really helps accelerate the time that it's going to take to publish some of these new experiences.
Eli, I'm glad you brought that up. So when I was speaking like manual, I was thinking of just like human effort and versus, say, AI. Because I have heard people say we should use AI to do product enrichment and filling of attributes. I think what's interesting is from what I hear from my peers, everybody has a product data issue. It's not accurate. So with AI, if you don't have an accurate data set to go from, then you are not going to get great product enrichment. We tried it early on. We had to redo it because our data was a mess, and a lot of companies' data is a mess. So there was no leader. And also for us, a lot of our products are private label. Most of them are. So that adds another layer of detail where you can't compare one of our SKUs to, say, a competitor's very easily. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up about the automation, because the PIM has enabled that for sure. And also automatically identifying or proactively identifying opportunities within our product where we're missing it or something just isn't lining up.
Yeah. And let's not forget about all the automation that you have that we don't even think about sometimes, which is in the search platform. Even though it's not perfect, your team is not tinkering around with left navigation sequencing and which attributes should be in left navigation. You've got a search platform that takes care of that for you. And so with a small team, that allows you to focus on other things and look forward and actually drive towards table views and not be tinkering around with left navigation all year.
We've been talking a lot about, resourcing and other types of investments in systems and things of that nature. Jeff, how did you, convince your senior management that this was the right path? What kinds of things did you have to tell them? And I know you didn't sort of solve it all at once, right? This was a journey. We talked about that, but tell me, getting it started. I mean, you talk about hiring people. I mean, how did you get senior management on board with that first hire, for example?
So this started out with a presentation in 2018 with a roadmap, essentially. One, we identified, and I presented out to senior leadership where our gaps, our opportunities were. Mm-hmm. And like I said before, they were glaringly obvious. The great thing about Kimball West is that they were interested and excited about moving forward with e-commerce. So they had launched the site late 2014, early 2015, and they realized we've got to spend some time focusing on e-commerce. So as we were kind of going through this process in the roadmap, one of Kimball's philosophies is around just continuous improvement, and what. To kind of explain that, we just kind of build very progressively each year over, mm-hmm. It's now been 6 years since we started it. So we would add another associate, each year or every 2 years. Mm-hmm. We would take on more enrichment. We would do more work with Eli's team. And mm-hmm. we were doing work with our IT developers as well to enhance the site, whether it was a taxonomy change or a user experience change because of the data and how we wanted to merchandise the site. So like I said, it's been a 6-year journey. It's going to continue, but one of the outputs of that roadmap was getting to what we call table view, which is a very different way of presenting products to the customer when they're searching. And, today you probably used to seeing, 10 search results. For instance, we sell 650 grade 8 hex head cap screws. They all have the same image. On our site today, if you were to type in grade 8 hex head cap screws, you're going to see 60-some pages of the exact same product image repeated over and over and over. And certainly you can do faceted search and narrow that down. But even with our data being in a poor spot years ago, that was difficult. Mm-hmm. So the vision really was to get to table view, but we had to do all the product enrichment, the normalization, the taxonomy, variant groups, correcting the attribute values, getting consistent mm-hmm. attribute names across the entire category. Mm-hmm. That's where the lion's share of the work was to get to what we're going to be launching soon, which is table view.
And the table view is going to be a different way of visualizing and making a selection of the product that doesn't require someone to scroll through, 60 pages, right? So it's just a more way. Mm-hmm.
I would liken it to more of like an Excel spreadsheet presentation, okay. Mm-hmm. Where there's rows and columns, and they're consistent with column header names, and you get enough of the product attributes in order to make a decision
right
on that particular table.
Gotcha.
And if you want to buy it or not.
So Eli, we talk a lot about PIM systems as being an important element of this, and selecting there's a lot of different options of PIM systems in the market today. Addressing different types of needs and different budgets and things of that nature. What are some of the best practices? You talked a little bit earlier about requirements. as being one piece of that. How does a company like Kimball start the process and sort of start the process of just finding out who might be a good system to begin with?
Yeah, I think, most of the PIM vendors are willing to do some demos and help you understand what they're all about. So most of the PIM selection processes that I've seen start with some requirements gathering. And then, a lot of times they start bringing in the PIMs for demos. And oftentimes it makes a lot of sense to have some sample data. Maybe some sample data that aligns with some of your most important requirements. So I'm going to try to weave this back together with table views that we were talking about. So table views was something that was really important for Kimball Midwest and is really important in this industry, which is, I'll say, is industrial supplies or MRO. PIM selection is particularly difficult within this space, especially because of this, what we see as a transition towards table views. And Jeff described it pretty well, but a table view is ultimately a different layout for your product listing pages. It's a different layout for your search results. It drives changes throughout your data ecosystem and your user experience. And if you look at, the organizations today that have table views in industrial supplies, it would be McMaster, Grainger, Fastenal, Global Industrial, and Volition. I don't think any of them has a commercial PIM. Nobody wants to talk about that. But, so the market leaders don't use commercial PIMs. Now, maybe they have them somewhere in there, but for the most part, they weren't able to get there with commercial PIMs, or they didn't get there with commercial PIMs. If you look at the kind of the market laggards, those they're kind of trailing behind, they also don't have PIMs. And I think that's kind of where Kimball Midwest was, a decade ago. And so, the leaders don't have commercial PIMs because they're too limiting. The laggards don't have commercial PIMs because they haven't gotten there yet. And then everybody in the middle is kind of converging on this, which of these PIMs do I select to kind of outsource my IT for product information?
Yeah, fascinating. That's really interesting dynamic. And, I think, Jeff, we were talking earlier a little bit about the value of not just going maybe straight to a PIM, but having a strategic advisor helping you along the way, a company like Industrial Data Associates. Tell us, how you've worked with Eli and his company on this, and what's been the value of having that partner in place.
Yeah, so when we went through the, assessment of looking for some partners to help us to get over the fact, we hadn't done this before, and even Eli talks about table views. Right. We're learning things today that we never even could have thought about 4 years ago, 5 years ago when we were talking about it, PIM, just from his experience. But that first time I met Eli and he started talking about his services, I was just learning something every sentence that he was talking. It was clear that we had found an expert from a data enrichment, taxonomy, and logical data model perspective. Yep. So, our relationship started out, fairly simple. Eli, from more of a consultative approach, giving us some guidance. He was giving us instruction, and as our relationship evolved, we looked to them for strategic guidance. They're definitely consultative, and they're working hand in hand with my team. I have, my 3 merchants, and some of the folks on his team, they're meeting every single day. They're dividing up, okay, I'm going to attack this particular category, or we're going to go after this particular variant group and focus on these things. And then my team may go over here and focus on this. They also have really great tools that, they don't have a PIM, but they've got this back-end system that allows us to make wholesale changes very quickly and efficiently, as well as identify a lot of gaps where we don't have a good fill rate. Maybe we have attribute names. So if you just think about width across an entire product catalog, you could have multiple ways to kind of define width. And his tool has allowed us to, narrow that down. So we have a small number of ways to define width, and that it's consistent. I'm just using that as an example, but he really does have phenomenal people working for him who are knowledgeable about our industry and the tools there to support us.
Well, fantastic. So I think, one of the rubs that PIM often gets, or just this whole data challenge, is just getting funding for it and getting getting like what are the results? Building an ROI case. We hear this. Andy Hoare and I hear this all the time in our Master B2B community. How do I justify the investments in these tools? But Jeff, you've seen some real results from this. Can you talk about that? Can you talk about what kind of things have resulted from this effort?
Yeah, so we've had the PIM in place for it's over 2 years, maybe 3 years now. And we've been working on data enrichment prior to that. So when I just look at where were we when we started in 2018 and where we are from a sales perspective, we've grown by a factor of 6 from that time period. And we've had a lot of growth in the last 3 to 4 years. So the PIM has definitely helped us structure our data, provide just a better merchandising experience for our users, which is really the key there, is feedback from my sales reps who are saying, we are seeing the site improve. We are seeing it easier to find our products on the site, and our customers are telling our reps that they have that close relationship with our customers. So getting some of that, I guess, qualitative feedback from our reps and our customers is what's really helping to fuel the excitement on my team to continue.
That's awesome. And Eli, how would you, if a company comes to you and says, gosh, I need to build a business case for this. I need to build an ROI to convince my CEO that we need to invest something in this whole area. What advice do you give, or what do you see companies using from an ROI perspective that works?
Yeah, I think there's a couple key places to start there. So, some organizations have more trouble than others tracking down this information, but oftentimes we can actually get great information out of the e-commerce platform. We can see conversion rates increasing. We can find, the time it takes to place something in a shopping cart or to find something going down. We can find the directness of the user journey improving, so people aren't jumping around and backtracking during their journey. So a lot of these metrics kind of build up to higher average order values, higher conversion rates. And if you have the ability to track these things, then that can really help make a business case and quantify the impact of a pilot or something. So that's one thing. And the other thing is onboarding time. So if you're an organization that struggles with long onboarding times or time to first sale, everybody understands how that improving that metric improves revenue. So, if you can improve your average onboarding time from a week to 2 days or whatever it is, everybody understands kind of how to do the math on that. That if you can decrease the average item onboarding time, you can you gain that many days of revenue.
And is that, and you think about, is that where really data syndication can come into this, where you're syndicating products to marketplaces like Amazon? Is that kind of part of that argument there too? Is there some element that companies build in around external, websites, e-commerce sites and such?
It is, and I wasn't thinking about that so much because we're here talking with a distributor. But if you're a manufacturer, for sure, and if you're a distributor who relies on some of these downstream platforms, that can be a big factor as well. So the ease of pushing information to new platforms. Yeah.
Gotcha. So Jeff, in this whole process, go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the onboarding piece. We'll add 1,000, even more, thousands of new products every month or every couple of months. And in the past, it was quick and dirty, honestly, for us to onboard a new product. We didn't have a lot of great attributes attached to it, and we didn't have a lot of attributes. It was kind of the bare minimum. So it was, in some aspects, simpler because it wasn't going in great. Now with the PIM, though, we can automate the birth of the product. As Eli was talking about, it's getting birthed in the ERP, so it comes over to the PIM. And once we see it come over, we can already pre-populate some of the attribute names, where it goes in the variants, and getting it set up for our team. Now, we are able to do more quicker onboarding, more onboarding of our products, but it's a little bit more comprehensive than it was in the past because of our desire to have accurate data. And that is one thing that I probably didn't expect to hear was that that comprehensive, that additional work that is required, because we want these new products to sell, and we have an opportunity to do it right the first time.
Okay. So what advice, Jeff, would you give to someone who's, you in 2018, a director of vice president of e-commerce, coming into a company where the data is a mess? What's one thing you'd tell them to do as they look at this issue?
Well, don't underestimate the amount of work, because that's something that I would say was my mistake. Mm-hmm. We have 55,000 SKUs, but we've got over 2.5 million data points.
Right.
And even if you just think about, we're having 1%, which is my online merchandising manager likes to talk about, if you're 1% wrong, you're still talking about tens of thousands of attributes, values that are not correct. I mean, when you put it in that perspective, like, wow, we still have lots of work to do, because we're not at 99.
Yeah. And what about you, Eli? Any advice you would give, to someone like Jeff as they walk into a new role?
Yeah, I think one of the things that Kimball Midwest did really well and continues to do really well is focusing on revenue and bringing that into the data management environment. Mm-hmm. So they are always, they're always thinking about, well, how much do I sell in that category? Do I really care about spending time working on it? Right. And if you look around their site, and as Jeff said, there's, every site has data errors. If you find errors, they're going to tend to be more like, you're more likely to find them in categories that are low revenue. Mm-hmm. I think I would recommend to anyone to be looking more and be aware of how much revenue you're talking about when you're talking about, the squeegee category. Mm-hmm. If your revenue over the last 12 months is $10,000, then maybe you shouldn't be spending too much time on it. Right. You'll hear other people say, well, that's maybe you're not selling more because you haven't put the time. No, right. You're never going to sell that many squeegees, so like focus on the things, focus on the high revenue categories, get those right. That's where you should be spending your time. Yep. Kimball Midwest does a great job of that. And maybe it's because they have a small team, but they have to. But they're always aware of how important it is to work on certain categories, and then they're always looking at metrics. They're always generating metrics. How is this category doing relative to the previous month, and celebrating victories and kind of questioning defeats. Even month to month. So I think they do a really good job of looking at the metrics and including revenue in those metrics when they're looking at product information.
Yeah, it's so important, right? To stay focused, stay prioritized. Well, guys, this has been a fantastic discussion. I want to thank both of you. This is a big issue in our industry, and I think you've just shared quite a few very tactical, practical ways companies can tackle this. I appreciate your time and both of you joining us. Eli Cooley, President of Industrial Data Associates and Director of E-commerce and Digital Marketing, Jeff Reichert from Kimball Midwest. Thank you both very much for being a part of our Fireside Chat series, and look forward to seeing you around the industry and learning more about your successes together on this ongoing issue. So thanks so much, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Eli.